All right, show number 125. And tonight our guest is amazingly talented, has wonderful photos that we've been streaming here in the pre-show, and you're going to be just amazed by the quality you see when we come through it. Tonight's guest is Kevin Cook. Kevin, welcome to the show.
How are you guys? Thank you.
Doing great. Doing great.
Thank you for joining us, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Kevin. Kevin is tonight audio only, but that's the main thing we wanted anyway, is the chat with Kevin. So what you have to suffer through, if that's suffering, is watching his photos, and then got a little bitty Tim and I on the side on our video. If you get sick of that, we'll just go full slideshow of the photos from Kevin. But in the meantime, let's get back to Kevin. Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into photography? Was this something you... I'm sorry, go ahead.
The craziest story, because I actually went to college for system engineering and computer programming and software engineering, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So that's like left brain, right brain kind of stuff. But a friend of mine actually just bought a digital camera about 6 years ago, and me and him and my wife now was at the beach, and he handed me the camera and said, "Hey man, take a picture." And for some crazy reason, I just got on the ground and took some crazy shot of like a starfish or something, and I didn't think anything about it. I just let it go. And then probably a week later, he posted those photos on Facebook, and he tagged me in it, and I kept seeing the notifications pop up. Oh, this is such a cool picture, whatever. So, I was just reading it. You kind of get big-headed. The picture was terrible, now looking back on it, but the concept of it was cool because, I had no idea about anything. I had no idea about light. I had no idea about perspective or, any of those things, and I just got down and did it, and it was just a natural thing for me. And then shortly after that, I went out and bought my own, like a Nikon D5000, and just started playing around. And I was actually doing IT work for a magazine as a contractor, and they had a full on staff or photographer that worked for them, and he was about to leave. So, they asked me to, if I knew anybody that was a photographer or whatever, and just jokingly, I was like, yeah, I'm a photographer on the side. And so everybody kind of laughed about it. It was in a meeting. So, and then a couple of days went by or whatever, and then one of the editors actually called me back and said, hey, do you have anything that you shot that we can look at? And I was like, dude, it's just,
it's a starfish.
This is a joke. This was a joke.
Yeah.
So anyway, I sent her some stuff, and she said, well, I think we can work with you. And then I was just doing little ad shoots here and there for them. And it was nothing like, it was like, if there's nobody else, send Kevin out to do it. And of course, I was really, really bad. And these are like really small, choppy 9x16 of a page ads. So yeah, that's kind of how I got going. And then she was amazing, digital artist. The girl that was she was actually the digital editor for the magazine, and she kind of took me under her wing and showed me like how to use the camera and some things in Photoshop and that kind of stuff. And then it kind of molded me to like more editorial style stuff, and that's kind of where I'm at now. But that's how I got going, man. It was really an accident, to be honest with you.
Well, not that you'll ever need this by the judging from your success, but if you ever need to go back in IT, we need IT people desperately. So I can hook you up, but I don't think that's going to be a problem for you. So you, really, that very first step of getting down at the level of the starfish, getting down there, you had something right there from the beginning. So many people wouldn't do that.
I don't even know why it happened, to be honest. Like, I never had any interest in photography before that point. Even after I took the photo, I handed him the camera back and was like, whatever, dude, here. And then it was like, whatever. And then, until I started getting notifications that, these people were on there, and it probably was nothing, but it was like 10 people. Oh, this is such a cool picture or whatever. And then it kind of piqued my interest, like, this is pretty cool. It's something I can do on the side. And we liked, at the time, I had a 9-to-5 job off every weekend. So, we used to go camping, go to the beach, whatever. And I was like, it would be cool to take a camera, And then you see something cool, you take a picture of it, and that's the end of it. So.
Yeah. So this editor helped you out. She helped you learn some of the ropes, but did you have any other avenues where you were learning from?
I'm kind of like a go-getter. I've always been that way. Even at IT, I started doing IT work when I was 13 years old. I'm talking about back when you had 10 hours on AOL to use for the month. I was, making hacks for games and stuff like that. So I've always kind of been like, it's almost OCD in a way. In fact, my wife tells me still that I have OCD about photography, but I really, really push myself, and I'm my own worst critic. So I'm constantly trying to find new ways to become better at what I do. And that is like the best education system that you can have is a desire and drive.
So a lot of that, you sound like a lot of that then was trial and error, just going out and doing stuff that worked and didn't work, and working your way through that. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. It was just trial and error. And I mean, I had a couple influences on me. It's because photography is, and most of the people listening will know this, it can be kind of cutthroat in your area because, everybody wants to be successful, and it's hard to find somebody to kind of take you under their wing and go, okay, I'm going to show you the ropes and show you how to do it. Because it's kind of like a battle. Everybody wants to be successful, and
right.
The truth of it is, I mean, that's a terrible way of looking at it, but that is the way it is in most cases. So, but I was lucky because I had a friend of mine who I grew up with, and his style is completely 180 degrees different. I mean, if you need to know anything about light, he can tell you. It's just his style is, he's still back in the 1980s and 90s. Like I don't want to offend anybody, but it's a completely different thing now than it used to be, photography. Mm-hmm. And as far as lighting, he can light anything any way you want. I mean, just create amazing light. So I kind of learned a little bit from him, and then it got to the point where it's kind of funny. Maybe a year or two down the road, he's like, man, I need to start following you around because it's insane how quick you learn this stuff. And I still, even now, like I'm very, very, very pushed, like to myself to make, to make sure that I keep learning something new, to getting better, and that that's what it takes to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we go to the next question, Melissa out in chat has a question. She wants to know, what gear do you use? Camera, favorite lens? You mentioned, one of your first ones was like the D5000, I think is what you said. What are you still Nikon, or have you switched to something else? And do you have a favorite lens to shoot with?
I actually used that Nikon for about 4 or 5 months, and then switched to Canon. Okay. And I'm not a Nikon or Canon person. If you shoot with either one, I say either one of them are awesome, whatever. I bought the Canon because I like the controls better. Mm-hmm. My hands are kind of big, and so I can get my hands in position better. And so I actually do shoot with Canon now. I have 2 Mark IIIs and 2 Mark IIs. And then my favorite lens is definitely the 1.5 or 1.285.
Ooh, that is an awesome lens. And I'm Nikon, Tim is Sony, and I don't think there's a 1.2 Nikon 85. I think that's a Canon exclusive.
It's 1.4 on the Nikons.
That is a awesome lens. So I don't want you to take this. This is meant as a compliment. You sound somewhat country.
I am very country. I was born and raised in the South.
Yeah, me too. You sound. We've had a guest on here before, Scott Green. Your photos don't remind me of him. I don't want to compare the two of you, but I should hook you two up through email or something. I think y'all have some things in common. I think it'd be interesting to have y'all two talk. He's very country here too in Georgia. So that kind of
it's so funny that you say that because a lot of people know that I teach webinars, and that's generally the very first thing that I hear. Like, I did not imagine that you were going to sound like you this country. So once we get past the accent, then it's like we can start learning. Let's do it.
Well, I'm from the foreign country of Louisiana, so you know. All right.
And I'm up from New York, so I'm that damn Yankee.
We got us all covered. We got us all covered. So, Kevin, that kind of talked about how you got into and learned, light and that kind of stuff. How did you learn the editing skills? Because we're talking about the photography, and you're excellent at that, but your editing skills are just out of this world too. How did you learn that?
To be honest with you, I probably read 25 books on photography. On Photoshop in Lightroom. I don't even know how many logged hours I have on YouTube. And to be honest with you, it's really like you have to find a niche. And for me, I started the same way everybody else did. Like, I went and spent, a gazillion dollars on Photoshop Actions from every photographer on the planet, and was like, this is going to make me great. And I kept going. I'm disappointed. It just never panned out. So a friend of mine, Candy Lamont, she's a photographer too, and she's in Boise, Idaho. She's a really good friend of mine. She is amazing with Photoshop, and she told me one day, she said, just delete all your actions. You can save them, but just delete them off your computer so they're not a crutch to you, and just start using Photoshop. This was probably 3.5 years ago, maybe. So I actually did it, and I started learning that there's easier ways to do it to get the same results. And there's so many cool things that you can do in Photoshop, from just making the photo look really cool to completely digitally, redoing a photo or whatever. Because I work a lot with clients, like we run a full studio here, keep a full schedule. I don't get the luxury to play like a lot of other photographers do, but when I get to, I will spend some time trying to make them really cool.
Okay. Question out in chat is, how do you do the butterflies? There's an image of a girl with a butterfly right in front of her, and then the fairy look. Is that a software plugin, or are you doing a composite with the?
That is actually a composite, and you can buy a lot of those images off of. There's a new one I just started using too. I think it's called the Dollar Club or something like that, and they're like 99 cents a photo. You can get any animal you want. You can get butterflies. You can get whatever you want to add to your composite, but it's really cheap. And I believe, I'm pretty sure because I read this stuff, but I think you can use them up to 500,000 prints, and I've never had anybody order that much from me. So,
and if you did, then you're really not worried.
You would tell them to just order.
Time to be talking to you guys. Put it out.
Exactly. You tell them to order one less, just 499,999.
That's right.
And then you're good to go.
No royalty fees.
All right, so I'm looking at the images, and the editing, like I mentioned before, is just fantastic. How much time are you spending? You go to the shoot, and then you got to do the editing afterwards. On a typical shoot, how much time are you spending shooting and then editing?
I would say on a typical shoot for me, I shoot maybe an hour and 15 minutes, and I'm really selective when I'm shooting. I don't have a problem with people that take 500 pictures in an hour. It's not ever been my style. I think for me, I like to set the shot up and get what I want and then move on to something, Mm-hmm. So I'm like really, really conscious about everything in the photo. If I'm not going to use it, I don't shoot it, just for me, because, it kind of makes you lazy when you can correct the stuff later. So my advice when I do a workshop, and I do them once a year, is this. set the shot up and get the shot the way you want it. So when you get into Photoshop, you're not spending hours trying to get these photos to look right. Use correct light. If you see stray hairs that are sticking up, just walk. It takes less time to walk over and fan them down than it does to go and clone stamp them out, or use a spot healing tool to get rid of them. Those are little things that you can do while you're actually on site. If you have an assistant, like I always have an assistant when I shoot. Anytime I go out to do a shoot, I have at least one assistant. And if it's a windy day or whatever, and I need somebody to hold lights, and I have two. But one of them's responsibility is constantly to look for those little things. If you see a cigarette butt on the ground, pick it up. It just saves us time. So I would say it's about equal, the amount of shoot, to the amount that I edit the time. And it's really just about getting it close in camera. And if you can do that, then you're not spending a bunch of time. And that's one of the things that I think is the biggest compliment that I get, and I get it a lot, is sometimes people go, well, who couldn't edit like that if they had photos that look like that out of the camera? But that's the point. I mean,
Really?
that's what we do. We're supposed to get it right in camera. And that's not a knock on anybody, because, 2 or 3 years ago, I'm not saying I was getting it right in camera, and I would know when I had a shot that I could use, and, I was shooting raw, so I knew I could correct these small things or whatever, and it doesn't take long to do it. But it's you kind of train your own self. Like, just if you go out and did this for 1 month, like, I'm going to set my shot up, I'm going to get my model or subject the way I want them, in the correct light that I want them, and I'm going to have somebody like watching the background, watching the foreground, that kind of stuff, to see if everything's the way we want it. If you just did that for like 1 month, it completely transforms your mind, and like you become really OCD about those things. So it really saves you a bunch of time for later, which is the point.
And right now, I don't know if you probably can't see this, but you have a few videos up on your on YouTube, and I'm kind of streaming some of those also as we talk, to give us to show a little bit of your editing, how fast you go there. Yeah, so it's that person who said something about who couldn't edit like that if you had photos out of the camera like that. I don't know if they meant that as a insult, but really that's the opposite. That's an incredible compliment.
And that's exactly. I mean, I take it with a smile, because I have friends that are really good at Photoshop, and I have some friends that are really good in camera. If you get somebody that's good at both of them, they can make amazing stuff. And so when I do the workshops, the first thing is obviously trying to get it close in camera. It doesn't mean it has to be perfect. It has to be perfect, but the closer you get, obviously, the better. And then the backside of it is, if we're using Photoshop to enhance the photos, to bring out more color, to correct skin, to correct skin tones, those things, you spend a lot less time. You can make a lot more money, because you're constantly you're getting to do more. And it's much easier on you when you don't have to basically tear down a whole photo and rebuild it to make it look good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so yeah, I take it as a compliment when they say that.
I'm watching some of the photos now. The backgrounds are so creamy. That must be that 85-1.2. Are you doing anything extra to like soften the background on any of these in the editing?
It depends. Sometimes I do add some filters to them just to make them, just to soften them up a little bit. I shoot with, and this is one of the things. I kind of shoot wide open. Yeah. I know that's not what purists like to hear, but in fact, this is kind of funny. I had a guy who told me I don't even remember, some group one time. He said that only newbies shoot in the low 2s and 1s. And I was like, are you kidding me? You really just said that?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Only newbies shoot in the 1s and 2s, f-stop. And I was like, I didn't even know how to respond to it. Like, I don't even know what that means. But that's how I shoot, very shallow. I shoot with the 200 millimeter 2.0, which is an amazing lens. I would say it's my favorite if I didn't have backache every time I used it. And I do use it a lot, but the 85, there's just something about it. It's probably the first prime lens that I bought that I swear to God, I'm not lying. I literally didn't take it off my camera for probably 2 years when I first bought it.
Yeah,
Just because it's one of those lenses that you can do anything with. If you have 10 feet of space, you can do anything you want with 85-1.2. So
that is a fantastic lens. And Mike Wren has a great question out there where I was going to go next. Another thing I noticed when I was looking through your photos, and guys out in chat and who are watching this later, whatever we're streaming here is going to be a lower quality of Kevin's photos. You know, we'll have the link to his website, which is just kccphotography.com, I believe, or .net. .net. Yeah, I would highly recommend you go out to his site and look at them. And first time I looked at them, Kevin, I literally got goosebumps as they were going through. They were that good, just fantastic when I looked at them. But I noticed as I was going through them last night and getting some of them for the show tonight, is how well the subject fit into the scene. And I'm kind of piggybacking off of Mike Wren's question out in chat, is how much time do you take setting up the scene? Or do you have when you have a client, are you thinking, I want to do this client at this scene? And are you doing anything matching? There's a lot of questions, I know. Are you doing anything matching, saying, all right, this scene, like I saw the one with the red brick, and you had the girl was a little bit red skin tone with I think a light red hair and a red dress. So that just seemed to blend so well together. How much thought is going into the actual scene? To sum that question up.
A bunch goes into that, because my philosophy in this was the more harmony you can get from the whole photo collectively, the more, it comes out. Like when people view it, when they see it, they go, I can't put my finger on it, but everything just kind of like is in harmony and blends together.
Exactly.
So when I go out to do a shoot and I'm choosing the location, I'll tell you, this probably isn't what anybody wants to hear, but the first thing that I do is make sure I'm using good light. And light is the first most important thing to me. And I'll take light over a beautiful scene any day, just because you can do so much more with light. But you first, you find the light that you want to shoot in, and then you find that harmony. And that harmony is just based on their appearance, what they're wearing, what the scene looks like, the colors in the scene, the colors of what they're wearing, those kind of things. And you can take something that's maybe out of the ordinary, unorthodox, and put someone in that particular situation. Like I did a girl senior pictures one time, and my studio is in downtown in my city, and we're right in the middle of everything. And so there's a couple alleys that are, just a couple blocks from us. And it was a young girl. She was a senior, and she had on a business pinstripe suit. It was an amazing outfit. And I just, crazy enough, I leaned her up against on this brick wall, and there's blue trash cans, a yellow trash can, and all this stuff. And her mom is looking at me like, "Are you kidding me? You're about to take this picture?" And then it was the one that they picked, that they loved the most, and they ordered, I think, a 16x20 canvas of it or something crazy. But it's hard for you. You have to visualize the whole shot, not just when I set someone up. I don't just think about what do they look like. I think about, do I want to shoot this at medium range? Do I want a full body? Do I want a close up so I'm only getting some bokeh of all those beautiful colors? That's kind of where it is. You just make decisions when you get there, but don't be afraid, and definitely embrace trying different things that may not make sense at the time, but when you get back, you're like, this is amazing. And that's the one they ordered. So
are you coordinating with them, hey, wear this type of clothes? Or once they show up with the clothes, are you thinking, all right, let's go here? Or what is coming first? What's chicken and egg thing here? Who's coming first?
This is what I will tell everybody who's listening to you guys. If you do this, it will really help you guys out. One, coach your clients or models, whatever. Tell them your style is going to dictate what we end up with. That's number one. Number two, it's a really cool way to get people involved, and you can get them to really participate. And all you got to do is say, hey, I'll tell you what, you should bring 3 outfits when you come into the studio. And then you can help them pick which one's going to look the best for what you want to do that day. And they're only going to bring what they like anyway. So you're not dictating. If they come in with something that, may not be your first choice, then you pick the lesser of the three evils. But just having them bring 3 different outfits and then go, hey, this one will look great for what I had in mind. Well, they like it because they brought it and they bought it. So that really works for me. Like I always ask them to do that. And in the case of seniors, it's really most young girls in today's world have lots and lots of clothes. Mm-hmm. So they're more than happy to bring 3 of their favorite outfits out. And I was just lucky in the story that I was telling you, because she walked in wearing it. So it fit perfectly.
Awesome.
I wish
That's a great idea. I really like that. You're right. If you tell them to bring 3, they're going to bring only what they know they're going to look good in, or what they believe they're going to look good in. So if you help them select one, they're going to be comfortable in it already, and it's probably going to be something that you were already thinking about, or that you can do something good with. Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, they have the 3 outfits already in their closet. If not, they're going to go buy it or whatever. But if you just prep them and say, just bring the 3, they're going to bring 3 that they like, and you're going to get to pick your favorite, basically. So it really is very helpful.
Yep. Before I lose it here on the screen, and I know you're not looking at what I'm looking at, but there's some questions out in chat I want to work in here. Mike Wren asked, on your focusing, are you using like a center focus point, camera eval focus, or a set point on the Canon?
I actually I use manual focus.
Manual focus?
No, I'm sorry, not manual focus. Manual focus selection. So
okay, you're choosing which focus point to.
Yeah, I mean, because I always try to focus on the eyes. If there's any way, and having the Mark III really helps a lot, and I'm hoping that Canon will even go further and extend the focal points in the next series, and God knows if they ever make the next series. But yeah, I mean, I just, because I don't really shoot a lot of fast-moving objects. Even when I work with children, I just know that I have to use a lens that's faster. So I may not get to use the 85 because everybody knows how slow that is. So it's a kind of, if you can afford to do it, buy the 85 1.8, which is like lightning. So when you do get those kids that are running around at the speed of light, you can grab them real quick with focus.
Yeah.
And you can't force equipment on a really fast 2-year-old or 3-year-old just to get the shot that you want. Sometimes you just got to pull out what you can use on those children. And the one I was just talking about, it's like a $385 lens, but it's 10 times faster focusing on those moving subjects. So it's a lot easier for me.
So the 1.8 is faster focusing than the 1.2?
Way faster, because you got to think about how much glass you're moving with that 1.2. I mean, it's a big, thick piece of glass. And the 85 is a very, very sharp lens for the amount of money that you're going to spend. It's not L glass, but it's very, very. Anybody out there that has that lens will tell you it's very, very, very sharp, extremely light. It's extremely cheap for the quality that you get. So it's a good one to have as a second in your bag if you have the 1.2, because you're not going to catch a moving target with that thing.
Now, the 1.2, shooting a 1.2, your depth of field must be really, really shallow. Was that a learning experience for you to learn how you can push that and where your boundaries were going to be with that lens?
That is a great question, because the guy that I was just talking to you about, the one that kind of taught me a lot about light, he, like I said earlier, he kind of shoots, like in the 5.6 range. He wants to get everything real crisp and sharp. And when I started shooting with the 1.2, he told me, he said, dude, I have this lens. You're never going to hit nothing with that 1.2. It's impossible. Unless you're, 50 yards away, then you get everything in focus still. But he was astonished, because I don't know, I was pretty good at like picking my spot to use it. And a lot of the stuff that you guys are looking at was shot at 1.2. I mean, I shoot, if I can get by with it, then I shoot it.
Yeah,
as well as I can.
I should mention the photos that you're seeing behind me, they're not timed to the ones that we're streaming, but they're the same ones.
Right, and there's a lot that I'm sure if you pulled them off the website, then there's a ton of them on there.
That are at 1.2.
At 1.2.
All right. So Stephen asked, in your Captain America shot, there's a Captain America shot of a young boy there that's got like a little motion blur, like he's coming up on it. I shouldn't assume. I'll ask. Is that post production or is that out of the camera?
That is post production, and it literally took me like, I don't know, 2 minutes to do it. Basically, I just created a duplicate copy of the layer, created a mask around him, and then I just drug it over, with the lens blur.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, with the motion blur, and then just masked it where I wanted it.
You mentioned something early on that is something that everybody should. It's a good point, and something I think a lot of people forget, and that is, at first you didn't use Actions. You learned how to do it manually, right?
I did, and I mean, I teach so many of these classes. You would be blown away. I mean, I'm doing at least 2 a day.
Wow.
Usually, I'm spending, between 2 and 6 hours a day teaching Photoshop to people now. So, and a lot of them, when they start, they have no idea like how much you can do without having all those things. And I'm not going to sit here I do sell Actions. We just launched an action page because there's people out there that's not going to, they don't really care. They just want quick results. And the ones that we make, the ones that I make, that I sell, are basically, they're super simple, but they really have a dramatic impact on your photo. And you don't have to, it's basically all about painting, because that's what I do. That's one of the things that I teach when I do this class is using your mask correctly, and being clean with your mask. Because if you're not, everybody's seen those photos where you got halos all over the place and they look terrible. So I kind of drill hard on, when you're creating your mask, to make sure that your mask is very well getting tight, on your subject and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things like, if you started on Actions, it's hard to break away from it, just because they are super simple and they make your life way, way easier, and it's a lot faster. But what I noticed, and there's probably people listening that have experienced this too, or are going through it now, I would run an action on a photo. This is 3 or 4 years ago. And then I would find it's supposed to be quicker and faster and easier, but I would find I would spend more time like adjusting colors and that kind of stuff. And there was times when I'd literally have to get up and just walk away because everything started looking the same, and I would have no idea how to fix it. So that's kind of what we teach, and it definitely makes your life easier. But there's people out there that will continue to use them, so we do sell them, and ours are amazing, honestly.
And I have your webpage pulled up now. It's kccactions.com is where you have your Photoshop and Photoshop Elements actions for sale, right?
Yes, sir.
And I think you have some tutorials there. There's a number of links there. Tutorials, education. So you say you're doing 2 of those a day. Is this one-on-one, or is this one with a group, or how are you doing that?
Ours are one-on-one because, and a good friend of mine, Lisa and Meg and all them, they do group settings. Me personally, I just don't feel like you can get as much out of it when you have 15 or 20 people in there with you. It would be easier and more convenient for me to host, 1 a month and do 30 people, or twice a month and do 30 people. But for the people that are spending the money, I feel like they should be able to stop you and go, "Why did you do that? Explain that to me. This didn't make sense to me before. Can you explain why you did it this way? Why did you use curves instead of levels?" That kind of thing. It's really important that you have, whenever you're doing this education webinar like we do, people should be able to stop you and go, "I want this to make absolute sense. Why you're doing it this way?" And it's a lot harder to do that when you have a group of people. That's why we have thought about going to like a classroom environment and having more, but I think it's unfair to the people who are spending the money.
And I don't know how you do this without cutting into the revenue of the 1 hour sessions. But have you ever thought about selling the videos, a video tutorial that, here's how you do something particular? Wouldn't be where somebody could ask you questions. It would, obviously it's not live, but more like selling tutorials.
Yeah, we actually have thought about doing that. In fact, it's kind of in the works right now. It's just because of how easy it is now to pirate all these things, with screen recorders and, people can post them all kind of different places and stuff like that. So we're with someone right now who's trying to come up with a system that would make that virtually impossible. Just because a lot of people, and it's not us trying to be greedy or anything like that, and that's a misconception that a lot of people have, like, well, these photographers, like Kevin and Lisa and all these people, they make a ton of money on this stuff. Honestly, I'm probably making like $10 an hour when you add up all the reading, all the research, all the practice over the last 6 years that I've done. When I was working till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out how to do these things. I mean, literally, it's been miles and miles and miles in this journey of me like really working. So it's not, it's not that cut and dry like a lot of people want to make it. It's way more complicated than that. And I didn't just roll out of bed one day. I'm sure you didn't. They didn't. Everybody gets to a certain point with their levels of education, and then you have a choice. Do you want to keep going, or are you content with where you are? And that's the difference. If you're not content, then you keep going.
You look at any profession. You look at accountants, you look at lawyers, you look at doctors, you look at many other professions like you were before, a programmer. A lot of those professions require continuing education if you want to stay on top of things. If you want to just if you want to be an accountant and just sit there and do journal entries all day for the rest of your life and never go anywhere, then you probably don't need additional education. So the same holds true for photographers. Whether it's editing, with you doing some kind of workshop or doing something like we talked last week with our Canem with those guys, Trey Ratcliffe and those guys, some type of continuing education is critical, I think, to your career and your growth.
It is. It really is. And even myself now, like, I'm not opposed to ordering a book on Amazon. My wife calls it a waste of money at this point. She says, why are you buying books on stuff you know how to do? Because you can get lackadaisical in your approach if you don't consistently drill it in your brain. So, and I get emailed every single day, and it's the same exact question people ask me. Will doing this really help me or improve what I'm doing? And the answer is, it depends on you. If you have a mind that you are willing to apply the principles that you're taught, practice the principles that you're taught, you're going to be amazing, because we're giving you all the tools. It's kind of like a carpenter who only has, nails. He doesn't have a saw. He doesn't have a hammer. People go into this very unequipped. They don't have any of the tools. I did the same thing. Because of the photography boom that happened, 6 or 7 years ago, and it seems like it's even growing now, but the boom happened. It was, everybody just wanted to go out and buy a camera and start taking pictures. Just good side money. That's what we all thought. And it was. But you can take that and turn it into, a $500,000 a year job. It's just a matter of what do you want to take out of, or $2 million a year job. So, it really comes down to what you put in is what you get back out. And I really, really believe that. That's why I still buy books. That's why I still watch videos. And sometimes I watch videos and go, man, this guy's doing it the hard way. But that's just what it is. I mean, so I see that stuff. But you're exactly right. There's always a level of continuing education. Anytime you're a skilled professional at anything, and even when I got Microsoft certified, it was a constant battle to make sure that you stayed up to date with all the new stuff coming out. And, you know, that still today, if I wanted to get back into that industry, I would have to do a lot of refresher courses, because I went full time with this 4 years ago. So I've been doing this 4 years.
Lots changed in programming since then.
Yeah, a lot's changed. I mean, even operating system, back when I stopped doing it, Vista had just came out basically, or got into a good platform. So.
Well, you know, and you mentioned something about getting the books and still learning something from that. My philosophy, and it's not always easy to remember, is even if you're, let's say I'm what I would consider a very good power user in Excel. And, you know, when I come across somebody who is using Excel that is not nearly as good, or doesn't know nearly as much as I do, I can sit there and there's times I still learn something from them. And I see them do something and go, hey, how'd you just do that? So, you know, I would caution people not to discount something like that. Getting a book where you've never done learning everything, is I guess the best way to say it. Okay, question out in chat is, everything we talked about here is Photoshop and Photoshop Elements. So do you do anything in Lightroom, or do you plan on doing any Lightroom presets or anything in the future?
I do. And the webinars that we do is actually Photoshop and Lightroom. I actually don't even work in Elements.
Okay.
I just kind of have a process now that when I'm making Photoshop Actions, I kind of know what I can use to run in Elements, and I do have Elements just to test everything out. But yeah, I mean, I'm putting together a pretty cool collage of presets for Lightroom. It should be available in the next couple weeks. And there's so much you can do on Lightroom. They underestimate Lightroom, I mean, to the nth degree. And it's just because they don't know. They think it's just like a gallery that you can view your photos in RAW. But Lightroom is very powerful, and you can learn so much just in Lightroom. I have a good friend who's a photographer, and he's really good at what he does, and he has never learned Photoshop at all. So everything he does is in Lightroom, and he's really good at it. And he kind of challenged me a long time ago and said, hey, why don't you try just to learn more about Lightroom and see if you can get by with it. And because I shoot a lot of weddings, it was like a necessity. When you're shooting weddings, you have to be able to do a lot of batch stuff and, you know, generating presets for this specific portion of the wedding that you shot, because lighting is different or whatever. And if you want to put together this amazing gallery without spending 3 weeks working on it in Photoshop, you have to be able to use Lightroom.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to try and get these questions in order out here. And you guys, I love you guys giving questions, but I have some questions of my own. I'm going to have to work through these a little bit faster. Stephen asked, how many hours per week do you work? And continuing on with that, I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit. How are you balancing family and life, family and work? Because you're married, right? And then do you have kids? Can't remember what you said there.
I have he turned 4 months today. Okay. In fact, he's the kid in the boat. The sunset.
Okay.
I thought I saw that earlier.
Yeah. And your wife's name's Lisa?
Her name is Krista.
Oh, you mentioned Lisa earlier. Was that Lisa Holloway?
Lisa is a friend of mine.
Okay.
Lisa Holloway. But anyway,
okay. Can I just pause you right there? Put in a good word for us for Lisa.
I can do
We've been trying to get her to come on the show.
I'm sending her a text right now.
Anyway, okay. So how do you balance work and family life? You know, you're a young, recent father, and obviously you're putting in a lot of work with the Photoshop sessions, and then just the shooting and editing that you're doing. How are you balancing the two?
But the first part of the question is, I never stop working. I think someone asked how many hours I work.
Right.
And as a photographer, you work so many hours. And then you spend more hours when you start getting into Photoshop, and luckily I have some people that work for me that take some of the burden off of me, and I'm thankful for those people, because I used to work, like I did the accounting, I did the taxes, I did all. You know, it's impossible to have a life, but I would say that's something that I've been working on actually. Me and my wife have been talking about it. That, you know, because I do.
We just
You have
lose.
to slow down and make sure that I have more family time.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel, but I think I'm sure mothers feel the same way. I can only talk from a father's standpoint. I think you never feel like you're doing any one of the ones, giving as much of your time to it as you should. Your spouse, your child, or your job. It seems like you need to be giving each one more.
Yeah, that is true. And it's finding a healthy dose is like where I'm at right now, because I'm 35 years old and I have a 4-month-old.
Yep.
So, and I have a business that I've been very blessed that has been very successful in my town. And then, of course, all the other stuff that we do. But you really do have to find it, and I'm really in the middle of searching for that. And I've gotten better at it. I used to never say no, and that's a bad place to be. I mean, when you can't say no for your family.
Yeah, and I'm going to transition into saying no because this may feed into that a little bit. Faye's asking, I'm going to read it word for word, and then if I need to add to it, I will. Could Kevin explain his pricing and packages? I see what he has on his site, but a little confused between a sessions, mini, print order, and everyday minis, and others that include digital images. So that's our question, and maybe just a general pricing question. Because your pricing you may lose some customers with your pricing, but it is where it is.
Right, and pricing is when you go through, trying to set yourself up, for the future of your company. If you really want to make it work or whatever, you have to forget what everybody else is doing and kind of market the area that you live in. You can get by with charging a lot more out in LA, in New York, than you can, in Kansas, I'm sure. So you got to kind of find what the area works. We're we definitely are the highest in our area as far as pricing goes. And like I said, we run a full-time studio, so we're doing a bunch of other stuff too. A lot of ad shoots. I do a lot of political work. And of course, we shoot weddings. So, and I do about 30 weddings a year, which is really, really hard right now.
Yeah.
But, and this is like the this is the 4th year cycle that we've been doing weddings, and I'm at 150 something. I don't even know, somewhere around there. So the price and what you charge will come. You have to establish a reputation for doing good quality work, and then you can charge whatever you want to. It's just based on your area, your market, that kind of stuff. I like making money on the back end and the front end, so we charge a little bit more than most people do for the session and the print. So
yeah, and I know
we stay busy.
A lot of photographers. This is a common question we get when you come across somebody successful like you. A lot of questions that is pricing. It's a struggle for people who haven't got to where you are. And how do I price myself? I'm going to start losing customers if I price too high. The market may be. You may have a market there where it's very competitive, and if you start pricing yourself too high, then you start losing customers. But I'm not a professional photographer, but I'd also think you've got to gauge your work against some of the other people. Maybe you need to step up your work a little bit to ask for more money.
Yeah, and this is like a general rule to live by. In order to get booked in your area, wherever your area is, there's a lot of photographers because that's just the way it is now. So you either have to be one of two things. You either have to be really amazing, so you're blowing people's mind, or you have to be the cheap guy. That's the two choices, or you're somewhere in the middle, which is very muddled, and it's like
that's where everybody's at, is in the middle.
Yeah, everybody's in the middle. It's just a muddled pool of photography. So and that area probably makes up probably 30 to 50% in the middle, but then the bottom guy, he's getting a big chunk of it. So the biggest thing to remember when you're pricing yourself is A, what kind of market are you in? don't be persuaded by other people in your area. Who cares if they're making more per shoot than you are, or they're charging more for prints than you are? The reason I say that is because it does not matter. You're marketing yourself for what you're worth, what you think yourself is worth. And if you do that, then you can, as you get better and better and better, and this is what happens to everybody I know, including myself, once they get better and better and better, then they constantly just gradually go up on their pricing until they get to where they feel comfortable going out and doing a shoot and the editing and all that stuff and what they're going to make on the back end. So I would say don't worry about what everybody else is charging. You charge what you think you're worth, and if you do amazing work, they're going to pay it. I promise you. It doesn't matter. There's some people out there who will pay no matter what it costs just because it's different. It's unique, and that's the one cool thing about in our area. I have a lot of photographers in this area, but most of them don't really go to extra mile. They just kind of, they're good quality pictures, but there's nothing like that blows off the screen or off the print, whatever. So, I would just tell them, just forget what everybody else is doing. Do your own thing and build your own market, and then the customers are going to come.
I think that's a great way to look at it. As I'm trying to visualize this, is looking at a curve, and you got very few people in the low end with a very, very low price. You're gonna have to be the low price guy or girl, and very few on the other end of the curve where there's really good quality and high price, and then everybody else is jammed into the middle. It's not a perfect curve there, but like you just said, and if you're jammed in the middle, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, you're a part of like a ton of other competition when you're in the middle. So the guy who wins is the guy who's either much better or much cheaper. That's the guy who wins.
Yeah.
So, and the guy that's much cheaper is not really winning, but you know what I mean.
Exactly.
So, and one more point that I'll make about this is, and I think it's probably the most important. A lot of times, people look at this and they're thinking about what they're making right now. Like I mean, honestly, if you took any business economic classes in college, one of the first principles that you learn is most businesses don't turn a profit for 2 years. That's what they teach you in college. They say, if you open a business, don't expect a profit for 2 years. Photography is a little bit different than that. You can, if you are good at what you do and you are willing to put in the work, you can literally make money immediately. But you've got to be consistent is number one, and you also you got to be able to do something that other people cannot do. And that's why, Elvis Presley was so famous. Mm-hmm. Because he was a really good singer and he could dance and he had the looks and all this stuff. I bet you if you could go back in history and somehow pull all of that, you would find there was probably people way more talented than he was, way better looking than he was. But because he put the whole package together, that's what made him special. So that's what we have to do. We have to make ourselves special by that.
It's not always the best or the most technology. I can't say the word. Tim, you look like you were going to say it for me. Advanced, the most technologically advanced or anything like that actually wins. It's the one that's most persistent and will maybe sometimes do things other people won't do.
Yeah, and this is a very true statement. Somebody told me this a long time ago, and they said, there's nothing wrong with being the expensive photographer in town. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Be the expensive photographer. That means you're telling people, dude, if you come to us, you're going to get amazing quality, but it's going to cost you something. And people go to, why do you take your wife out to the most expensive restaurant on your anniversary and not any other time? Because it's a special thing. You want it to be special. So you're willing to spend, the $48 for a 6-ounce sirloin or whatever you buy. So being the expensive guy is not a bad thing. That just means you're going to get the people, the clientele that's going to come to you are the ones who are willing to pay for quality, and that's not a bad thing.
All right, keep that thought. I'm going to distract us for 1 second because I got to ask this question. My day job is an accountant, and I got to ask you why the $sign after the number.
Where do you mean? Where is that?
On your website.
I have no idea. I'd have to look at it.
All right, I thought you were going to have a quick answer for me. Like on your pricing, you have, I'm going to throw out $200, then $.
That's a good question. Maybe I need to have somebody look at that.
We'll table that one for another day. So going back to the being pricing yourself and all that kind of stuff, have you ever worked on a photo? You done all this work, done the edit, and let's say for some of the ones where you're doing the fairy tale or the superhero, and been really proud with it, and then the client not like it or not even order it? Have you ever had that happen?
Let me think. I don't think so, because those type of sessions, they're kind of well thought out. Like, we put time into it, and of course they know they have a minimum anyway, and they cost more to get the session done. So
they were already they were expecting that, and they knew what to expect then. Yeah,
I mean, we do those, like the superhero shoots. We do them all the time.
Yeah.
And I used to post a lot more pictures, but Facebook has just completely killed us. With the new rule changes, and when they went public, and now they're showing like 0.5% of your fan base, the stuff that you post or whatever the number is. I think we're at like 45,000 fans, and maybe 12 to 1,800 of them get to see what we put up. So I kind of I used to have a social media, basically a girl that just did nothing but work on that kind of stuff, answering emails, doing Instagram and Facebook and all that. But it's rough. It's rough right now.
And really, I don't know about you, but we have not found another avenue to replace that with Facebook. Google Plus is not it. I don't think you're that active on Google Plus from what I could find, but some of the people I know who have moved over, photographers who I know who've moved over there as an offshoot from Facebook, it's just really hard to get any traction that results in business over there.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I heard. And it's something that we may look at in the future. I've already set up everything just in case, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I heard the same grumblings 1.5 years ago that Google Plus was the next Facebook for business.
Yeah.
But from the people that I've talked to, they just haven't had the results.
I have not seen it. And then the other thing, with somebody who has a big fan base on Facebook like you do, I've heard this from some other people. We don't have near what you have. But as you get the bigger fan base, if you want to boost the post, it's way more expensive. Like, if you wanted to boost the post and I wanted to boost the post, you'd pay more than I would pay.
That is absolutely 100% true.
Yeah. And that just... what used to be you could post it and you'd have a good number of your 40,000 people see it. Now you may have to pay hundreds of dollars to get a good portion of the people.
Yeah, and what's funny about it is Facebook actually, because I've looked at doing that in the past and actually have done it in certain situations, certain things coming out or whatever. So you want to boost the post, but it's really funny because they give you a range, like just say, $100 will show between 1,800 and 9,500 people, but you're going to get the 1,800. That's what you're going to get out of it. I mean, they give you this wide range of numbers, but it's the lower number basically. And for me, because of the amount of fans we have, I think it cost me like $100 per 3,000 or something to boost. So it's a lot different. Like I used to be able to post a couple years ago, and basically I'm guessing that everybody who was online saw it. If they liked our page, they saw the post that we did. But it's not like that anymore. And it really does. It hurts if you live on Facebook, like as far as like your business. If your business is just based on Facebook, like some photographers, back then it used to work because you could post a photo, tag the person in it, and then you get 10 more sessions out of it because all their friends and family saw it.
Right.
Now it's not like that. So, and we've been very, very fortunate because in a 100-mile radius from the town that we're in, we're #1 on Google in every single category. From even stuff I don't even do anymore, like newborns. Mm-hmm. And I get calls from 100 miles away from people who want to book sessions.
Is that from your website? You're saying from your Google search on your website? So you got
yeah, Google search on our website and actually our Facebook is we're 1-2 in every category. It's amazing in 100 miles because
yeah, that SEO the SEO work you've done on your website then has paid off really good.
Yeah, and we the number one thing about that stuff, and this is kind of hard for people to get, and I'm telling you this as a system engineer, not a photographer. It's continuity is the most important thing for this. Mm-hmm. Like not changing host all the time, you know, and that's really important. But like a lot of people they'll see, well, I'm paying $8.95 a month for this host right now. Let's switch to this guy who $2.95, and basically you get bumped back down. You got to start the process over. So continuity is really important, and for SEO and trying to get your website up there. But once you get up there, if you just change content periodically and that kind of stuff, you'll stay up there.
Yep.
And that's how you make money. That's really how you make money, by getting in the top 2 or 3 on Google, or not even the 2 or 3. But honestly, if you ask yourself this question, the answer is you don't. If you're looking for a plumber, you don't go to the second or third page. If you're looking for somebody to come out and pressure wash your house, you don't go to the second or third page. You just don't do it. You go through the first couple, and you find what you want usually. So that kind of works the same way with photography.
Yeah, that means you have to have a website. If you're a photographer, you need to have a website, not just rely on Facebook, because you can't trust Facebook, Google Plus, any of these social media to be your bread and butter forever. You've got to have that core, which is going to be your website.
Yeah, and Google will always be what it is. As far as we can see, Google will be the premier way to get business, just because, billions and billions of people don't even know any other way to get online except for Google. I can call my mom right now. She thinks she has to go to Google before she gets to Facebook. So, it's really important that you're exactly right. Getting your website up and running and having that continuity over time is going to stretch way further than anything you can do on Google Plus or Facebook.
Yeah. So we're getting, I don't remember exactly when we started now, but I think we're right at the hour here, or close to it. So I don't want to keep you much longer, even though I had a whole list of other questions. So I'm gonna wrap up with this question, and that is, your photo. I look at your photos, and if you took some of these photos of my kid, I can guarantee you I'd be printing this and putting them on a wall somewhere. These are just fantastic photos. But I talked to some of the ladies, in my office and some of the people I know, and said, hey, the last photo shoot you did, where you went out and hired a photographer, not went to like Sears or something like that. You hired a photographer to take these photos. How many of those prints are on your wall at your house? And every one of them said none. I said, well, what did you do with the photos? And I think most of the cases, all they did was share them on Facebook because they got digitals. And then I think one of them printed maybe 5x7s and sent a couple of them out to family members. Do you see that as a long-term risk to photography, that all people want to do now is get the photos, even these great quality you've done, that would look great 20x30 or something like that on a wall. Like you can see that one behind me. I would love to have a shot you took of my child up there on that wall. But now all they want to do is put it on Facebook and have it on their phone so they can show people at work. What do you?
That's the world that we live in now. There's so many people that are out there that are like diehard. We won't release digitals, and I don't mean copyrights. I mean give them a copy of it where they can go get it printed or whatever. There's so many old schoolers that are so against that, and understandably so. I understand there's a lot of money to be made on the back end. But honestly, in today's world, that is a turnoff to not give them that option. Even if you charge a lot more for the digital package that you want to sell or whatever, we sell a lot of digital packages. Just because of what you just said. I want to make this picture my profile picture, or I want to make this my cover photo, or I want to just have it as my wallpaper on my computer, whatever. That's what people care about now. They don't, we still sell a lot of prints, and it's because we almost forcibly do so. But we do have digital packages also, and any photographer that doesn't is basically handicapping themselves in the market.
You know what I asked? I asked her. All right, I asked one of them a few more detailed questions. Why didn't you print anything? You know, are you against getting prints? She goes, no, I'd really love to have like a canvas of one of the shots and put it up there. And I said, well, why didn't you do that? And in this case, what she got was a CD from the photographer, and that way she can go and get her own prints. But I think then she was, where do I go to get prints? And then when I went and looked at one of the sites I looked at, I wasn't happy with the site, or there were actually, as strange as this sounds, too many print choices when they went and looked. So I wonder if that's something where a photographer can help out, that maybe this photographer could have helped her out by giving her some guidance there. And even if they met in studio, have some samples of what does a canvas print look like.
Yeah, and well, our studio is absolutely loaded. I think we have 14 or 15 canvases on the wall.
That helps somebody when they can visualize, because not everybody is you're very creative, and I didn't get to ask you some of the creative questions I wanted to ask. Maybe that means I have to have you back sometime in the future. But that helps some people who maybe aren't quite as creative, especially a lot of the dads maybe not as creative. And then we see that canvas print, or see that maybe even a metal print or something like that in your studio, and we go, wow, that is fantastic. I want that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And I'm going to give everybody who's listening some really good pointers that kind of took me a while to figure out real quick. One, if you do digital packages, that's your business. I think you have to do it now. Doesn't mean you do it as cheap as some people do it or whatever. It just means you have to be able to offer that to people. But there's still lots of ways to make money around that, and we do it every single day. One, if you have a studio, or even if you don't have a studio and you're just meeting people out of the back of your van at a site or whatever, take the photos that you have. Go get some printed at Walmart. Go get some printed at Sam's. Go get some printed at Walgreens. And have some lab prints with you. Show them the difference. Look, you're getting the digital packages, but look at the difference in the quality. This is what you're going to get at Walmart for $4. When we do our digital packages, we offer them a 35% discount on prints. Okay? And that sounds like a lot of money, but we all know that it doesn't cost as much as we're making. So, yeah, we're selling them the digital package, and then we're making 65% of what we would be making on prints by going, this is what you get at Walmart, this is what we're going to give you. So when you get them printed, this is the difference. And you can give them a copy of it if you have their picture in like a 5x7 or something, and go, this is what you're going to get. If you go here, this is what we're going to give you. And you're going to get the 35% discount when you decide to order these prints. Yeah. And they're going to see the difference. If you're really getting them printed at a quality lab, like H&H or Black River or, Nations Photo Lab. There's lots of good places, and we get our stuff printed at different ones depending on the kind of paper. Like I have certain paper that I like better at certain places, but if you just show them that, you're going to make money on them because they're going to see the difference if you are doing what you're supposed to do with those photos.
That's a great point, and because I think a lot of people may go to Walmart. That's where they're going to go get their prints, and then there's not as good a quality, or they only share it when they share it on their computer. Remember that most of the people who are going to look at those photos on the computer are not calibrated monitors. Now, if you're looking on a phone or a tablet, they're probably better calibrated than your monitor. But monitors for the non-photographer, sometimes even a photographer, are not calibrated, so you don't know what it's going to look like. So getting them, like you're doing, and showing them some prints, where maybe they'll get some prints, is really helpful, and could be more profitable for you too.
It will, and the reason we do the discounts because people want to feel like they're getting a good deal.
Yeah,
I can still make lots of money on 65% of what I normally charge. It's still good money, and I'm selling them the digitals already, so I'm making more money on the front end of it. So that's really important, but it's a visual thing. You got to look at the prints from Walmart. You got to look at the prints from the lab. You got to look, you can see the difference. It's a humongous difference because of, color calibration and all that stuff. Even from lab to lab, you see a difference. So I mean, some of those places that you go to, some of these people go to locally are just, they're horrendous. Yeah. And that reflects bad on us, to be honest with you, because they don't. I try to tell them, if you go to Walmart, this is what they're going to look like, and here I'll show you what it's going to look like. But the truth of it is, when they put it on their wall and their best friend comes over, they're not going to care about my story of calibration and I mean, what are the DPI that we printed versus Walmart, and that kind of stuff. Plus, they give you no options in cropping. You basically hand it to them and they print it, and that's it.
Yeah.
There's no human factor to it.
Well, Kevin, thank you for coming out tonight. Sorry you had some trouble getting started, but hey, we're all set up next time we do this for you to come in.
Just ask me to come back, man. I'll definitely do it.
It was great talking to you. We glad we were able to hook up. And before, don't head out quite yet, just a couple of closing remarks before we leave. First thing is, if somebody wanted to connect with you, where's the best place to get in touch with Kevin?
Facebook, 500 Pics. We're pretty heavy on there. And I would say probably Facebook is the best way. I mean, to be honest with you, just because it's like a personal and business thing all at once. So.
And we'll have all the links in our show notes to your Facebook page, to your 500px, to what else did I have for you? Your website too, of course, and even your YouTube page. We have some.
I think we also had Instagram and F-stoppers and Tumblr.
Yeah, I didn't even get to that part where you've been at least twice been nominated in F-stoppers, like top 5 child photographers is one of them. I didn't even get to that, but I'll have a link to that so people who since we can get to talk about it tonight can go there and see that. What an honor to be one of the top 5 photographers for children, right? Is that what it was?
That's what they say.
Yep. Well, I got to tell you, I haven't seen what the other 4 are doing, but I can't imagine somebody doing much better than this. I mean, the photos are just fantastic, like I said.
Anytime when you get, like, I get asked to do stuff like this all the time, and it's like you always feel like it's an honor whenever somebody asks you to do this, because I just look at it like I'm just doing my job every day, and because of the internet now, it's like global. Like you would be shocked. Most of these classes I do is in Italy, Europe, in Germany, whatever, all over the world. So it's not tailored to your little area anymore.
It's not, and even our show here, while the United States is still the majority of the listeners, I think Germany is like number 2, and England is number 3 or something like that. So. It's an international base, and you're on the audio tonight. But Kevin, the strange thing, even though we're a photography show, the majority of the people who get the show get it through audio only. We generally have a nice crowd out there for the live show, but the vast majority of people get this recorded later on, and they get it through things like Stitcher or Spreaker. Spreaker, we have over 5,000 followers now over there, Tim, who are getting it on audio through either Spreaker or iHeartRadio. So for those people who are getting it that way, come out and see the show notes, where you can see links to Kevin's webpage, and you can go see some of the photos we had streaming tonight. And go to his webpage where you're going to see it in the highest quality. But you can go over to ours to see it, the links and everything. So you got the Spreaker, you got Stitcher, and of course iTunes for audio, and then for video you got YouTube, iTunes again, and then you have even TiVo. So if you're not subscribed through one of those processes, come out and get subscribed through one of those, and you'll get it every time we put the show out. Think about joining, and I'm talking to the general audience here, Kevin. I'm not putting you on the spot with any of this, but think about joining our Facebook group or our G Plus group. Over in Facebook, we have a monthly photo contest. There's no money. It's just you get your photo at the top of the thing. But it's a contest with different theme each month. And now we're doing every 2 weeks, I think that's how we're doing it, every 2 weeks, doing an editing challenge where we have some people who have donated raw photos, and we're doing an edit challenge. And it's helping each person, try some different editing on different photos that they may not have access to otherwise. You can do that through our Facebook group, or I'm actually got a way where you now can do it through our website, where you can either download the photo and re-upload it once you're done editing. And also, don't forget to use our Amazon link. Let me see if I can find that link here. Really easy. As we've talked before, we don't do this, Tim and I don't do this for profit. We do use the money here that we get from the Amazon link to do challenges or giveaways or something like that. Small amounts that we get from there. It doesn't add anything to your cost, but think about every time you go on Amazon to use our link, which is jpeg2RAW.com/Amazon. And then, of course, it wouldn't be jpeg2RAW without me mentioning what, Tim? The forums.
The forums, yes. I see. Even I forgot about them.
Yeah, come out there to our forums. You may not even know that you're using it, but if you're doing a photo challenge, the editing challenge, you got to go to the forums to download the image. So you're at least going there for that. The forums is a great offshoot from Facebook. It's a better way to organize conversation, and it's got things like the downloads, and it's got albums and stuff. So think about joining our forums, which is jpeg2RAW.com/forums. So until next week, keep it raw.
Good
night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.